Hey, good evening, everyone, or good morning to our global viewers, and welcome, Mabuhay. My name is Ari Sobando. I'm the Assistant Dean for Research of the Gokongwei College of Engineering, De La Salle University. I am delighted to be your host for today's DLSU IALU Sustainability Lecture Series. We are gathered here today to delve into a topic of critical importance, the urgent need for sustainable urban development, the shrinking window of opportunity we have to achieve it. But before we proceed, let us take a moment of silence for prayer.
Let me be the change I want to see, to do with strength and wisdom all that needs to be done, and become the hope that I can be. Set me free from my fears and hesitation. Let the courage and fill me with spirit to face the challenge and start the change I long to see. Today I start the change I want to see. Even if I'm not the light, I can be the spark in faith, service, and communion. Let us start the change we want to see, the change that begins in me. Today I start the change I want to see.
Even if I'm not the light,
I can be the spark. Service and communion. Let us start the change we want to see. The change that begins in
Jesus in us.
Jesus in
Okay, to provide an overview of the LaSalle Sustainability Lecture Series, we have the Vice President for Research and Innovation of De La Salle University. Let us all warmly welcome Dr. Raymond Tan.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. It's my pleasure to welcome you once again to another edition of the De La Salle University Sustainability Lecture Series. This lecture series is held in cooperation with the International Association of La Salle Universities and is organized by our Center for Engineering and Sustainable Development Research, together with the University Sustainability Office. The lecture series is held on the last Wednesday of each month and was first launched in 2021 to provide a platform for the dissemination of various research and extension activities throughout the IALU network on sustainability issues of both local or global nature. The lecture series now enters its fifth calendar year and remains a strong part of our initiative to contribute to greening the planet through our knowledge generation, education, and knowledge sharing activities. Finally, let me just thank our resource speaker today, and I wish all the participants a stimulating experience over the next hour. Thank you and good day to everyone.
Thank you very much, Professor Tan, for the insightful introduction of the Sustainability Lecture Series. Today's lecture is entitled The Arcadis Sustainable Cities Index 2024, the 2,000 Days to Achieve a Sustainable Future. We'll explore the challenges and opportunities we face as we strive to meet the ambiguous goals set by the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. As we all know, the year 2030 looms large. Its deadline for the SDGs and the nationally determined contributions. While we've made strides in some areas, the reality is that with only 2,000 days remaining, we must drastically accelerate our efforts. The Arcadis Sustainable Cities Index 2024 provides a crucial framework for understanding where we stand. Highlights that even top-performing cities face significant hurdles and that achieving true sustainability requires more than just meeting the basic criteria. It demands innovative solutions and a commitment to overcoming the diminishing returns on our sustainability investment. Today, we will unpack key findings at the Arcadis SCI and explore how we can collectively rise to the challenge. We will discuss the importance of integrating the three pillars of sustainability: people, planet, profit, and how to drive impactful change within our cities. It is now my distinct pleasure to introduce our esteemed speaker, Mr. Vince Ko. Mr. Ko is a global program manager for places at Arcadis, based in London, UK. He leads strategic initiatives focusing on sustainability and digital integration, driving long-term growth for both Arcadis and its clients. Mr. Ko's expertise lies in supporting clients across various sectors, including industrial manufacturing, property and investment, government and technology, and with the design consultancy of Build Assets. His work with the Places Global Business Area is instrumental in creating spaces where people live, work, play, and thrive. We are also very proud to note that Mr. Ko is an alumnus of De La Salle University, having graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering back in 2012. It's always a pleasure to welcome back a Lasallian to share their expertise with our community. Please join me in warmly welcoming Mr. Vince Ko.
Hey everyone. Hi. Thank you for the very formal and welcoming introduction from yourself, Sir Obanda, and Dr. Raymond Tan. If I can just get started, I don't mind. I'll try to keep this light because I know, I'm not sure what the audience is, but I'll try to keep it simple. Really, it's more just me talking about what we do as a company and how we're trying to support cities. A lot of it will be explaining what it means to make a city's index. A lot of it could be explaining in practice, like what kind of projects we work on to help cities, and even like a spotlight on Manila, which I think would be very relevant to a lot of you. I will try to keep it short as well, maybe 20 minutes, and I'll try to keep it simple. And if you have questions, I'm happy to go through all the details with all of you. And as been introduced, I was from DLSU, from the mechanical engineering batch, ID 112, and now I've been working for Arcadis for a while. We have a big office in Manila. A lot of people, from the LSU and other big universities go there as well. And hopefully, a bit of this inspires some of you to think about Arcadis as a potential opportunity for a career in the future. So let me try to share screen. Okay. Can everyone see my screen? Can someone nod
We can see it.
positively? Okay. Okay, great. A lot was mentioned in the introduction. A lot of it really revolves around the fact that we don't have much time. 2030 is right around the corner. We only have less than 5 years left. And we did set really ambitious goals as a world, as the global, United Nations community back in 2015. 2000 days is sort of what we were tracking, as we were making this index in the company. And really what we saw was that the traditional, let me just, I I won't try to read the slides if that's okay with everyone. I'll try to just talk through the important bits. And again, if you have questions, please just feel free to ask them. 2000 days is what we're tracking whenever we make this index, because what we see is that with the traditional triple bottom line, which is, how cities measure, success in their people aspect, in their planet aspect, in their profit aspect, profit being really important as well, because economic success is what drives success for the citizens of a city as well. We found that there's cities that are really high up in, like, very developed in their sustainability index, but aren't making that much progress because they're already so advanced. There's not much room for them to grow. Whereas a lot of the lower performing cities, the ones that are underdeveloped, have a lot of room to grow. So they can really jump their progress significantly with very little things like improving water quality in cities or improving access to education for females. It's hard for us, in general, to make an index that compares all global cities. And we have selected a set of 100 cities that we think would be appropriate to measure. This is the sixth time we're doing this, so we've been tracking this on a regular basis. We have a lot of metrics we use to track, success or, a score in this index. We really are trying to track them across all, sustainable development goals. And the important part about this index is that we are tracking not only the triple bottom line, people, planet, profit, but also progress. So how cities are progressing, because there is urgency here. We have less than 2000 days left. And the more we can see that cities are progressing, the better it is for us to track which are, best performing. Because it's not just about how successful a city is, it's also about how much they can learn from other cities, which is what we're seeing in a lot of the cities that really are performing really well in the progress aspect. And as I mentioned, the fourth pillar for progress is really important, because there is a lot of things that some of the cities that are underdeveloped are doing that we really should recognize. We don't want the conversation to remain in the European cities that are doing really well. We want to acknowledge also that there are cities like Jakarta that are doing, great work in water management and waste management and female education. And those are the kinds of things that we want other cities, when we, Arcadis as a global company, operate in a lot of these cities. We want them to see that there is opportunity to grow, and that a lot of the work to reach our sustainable development goals comes from the cities that are underdeveloped. Let me just go on to the next one. Okay, here are the rankings and the main findings. Once it starts clicking through, Amsterdam and Rotterdam top the list as 1 and 2, because they are, historically one of the most highly advanced in their sustainable development. They are still in the top because they are still making a lot of progress when it comes to policy for sustainability, which is really important as well. As you can see, a lot of the top 10, all of the top 10 are European cities, and we have a few cities in Korea and in Singapore and in China that are overall ranking really highly in this index as well. Again, it's because there is opportunity in a lot of these Chinese cities because they are massive. uh, to grow their sustainable development as well, because there is a lot of room to grow. For planet specifically, Oslo tops the list. For people, it's Paris, and I'll explain how we got to these metrics, or how we rank these in a little bit. For profit, it's still Amsterdam, and for progress, surprisingly, Jakarta. There is a lot of things here also, because progress, again, is about how countries are, how much progress they've made since the last index. There's a lot of factors that go into this, but again, it's seeing that some of the underdeveloped cities have a lot of room to progress, rather than cities like Norway, like Oslo or Paris, that are already highly advanced. A lot of the work they do has marginal gains compared to cities like Jakarta or Kinshasa. So for Planet, 9 of the top 10 cities for the Planet pillar are also featured in the overall SEI top 10. This means that this suggests that a lot of the cities that are already doing well in the Planet aspect tend to also do well in the people aspect, and tend to do well in the profit aspect, as well as progress. There is a lot of room for renewable energy, not only in the highly advanced cities in the ranking, but also the lower advanced, the underdeveloped cities in the ranking. Because again, a switch to renewable energy is becoming cheaper and cheaper. Solar panels are cheaper. Wind energy is easier to access. Water infrastructure is becoming better in some of these underdeveloped cities. Uh, just more on the metrics we use, just so that people have a sense of what kind of things we track. We track things like air pollution, drinking water and sanitation, resilience to natural disasters, so flood protection, typhoon protection, things like that. Green spaces, emissions of greenhouse gases, the policies that cities would have in terms of commitments to climates, or emissions in automotive exhaust. Sustainable mobility, so how well a city performs, in terms of public transport and waste management. Those are the kinds of things that we do our best to track, and we try to rank cities compared to, against each other, to see which ones would perform the best. A big example of this is the work we did with Germany's energy transition. They have a big plan to increase and to really ramp up their renewable energy, specifically wind turbines in all of the cities in Germany. And one of the big factors in wind energy is that it's pretty loud. It's hard for communities to accept that there is going to be wind turbines in their backyard, because it's loud for the community. It's not a great quality of life for those that are really near these wind turbines. So the work that we do as Arcadis would be supporting them in trying to understand the needs of these communities. Are they actually that loud? Can we measure the sound, the noise within the cities, and try to get feedback from people? If things, if, for example, Germany is coming up with plans to set up wind turbines close to a community, we would hear out the community, and we try our best to change the plan so that it promotes renewable energy, but also supports the community. Because again, all of this is for them. It's for the people that live and work in these cities. For people, this is an important factor in any city. If there are no people in the city doesn't exist. It is important that people are happy in cities, that people have access to, to affordable housing, health, education, and public transport. The main finding that we find here is that a lot of the US cities fall behind, mainly because of the work-life balance in the US. Those are the kinds of things that we try to measure when we think about how well a city performs when it comes to its people pillar. Other things that are important to us would be crime rates, cultural offerings, so how much of a city offers, public libraries, or cultural spaces like museums and stadiums that support a growing active population in the city. Income inequality is also a really big one, and work-life balance again is really important for us when we measure cities by their people progress. An example is the work we're doing in Paris, which I am in Paris at the moment actually for a project. And the work that we're doing here is to build urban forests. Paris is one of the most walkable cities in the world. It's a beautiful city, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done to maintain, this level of, walkability and sustainability in a place like Paris. So with the architecture around and the need for economic development, how do we maintain access to green space? If developers want this land for a profitable retail space, how do we balance that to make sure that the green spaces aren't left behind? Because if we imagine Paris without any of its greenery, it'll be a concrete uh, a city full of concrete without much natural nature and life and habitat that is important for not only for the planet but also for the people that live in these cities. The next pillar is profit, and this again is really important for cities because a profitable city is a city that will attract more population and that will continue to grow and and have the opportunities to invest in sustainable infrastructure and development. For profit, the important thing is that the important things we were tracking here was access to electricity, quality of internet, because internet is a really important infrastructure at the tool at the moment. Not only do we see highways and subway systems and transit systems as infrastructure, today, post-COVID, internet is a big, part of infrastructure now. Access to this, gives you access to education, to work, and things that will improve quality of life for all. Ease of doing business is important in profit because for small businesses, being able to grow and succeed in a city is important. Income and living standards are important. Employment is important, and transport infrastructure is important as well. What we see is that Chinese cities fall towards the bottom of the pillar, mainly because of the lack of access. The living and income standards is quite low in some of the Chinese cities that we're tracking. So there is a lot of inequality. There is a lot of the standards for income is still not fully there, and we want the work we're doing with cities in China is how we can improve that for them as well. The case study I wanted to show for this one is the work that Arcadis is doing in Detroit and Cleveland, because there is a lot of redevelopment they're trying to do to reinvigorate the city with investment and to bring in people and so that they can invest more and more into the city and to the state itself. The work we're doing is supporting the work we're doing is to support the overall development when it comes to the waterfronts. So waterfronts are really important for a city's economy because they are a big source of retail spaces, of commercial developments, and this is where high value property come in. And so what we try to do in Arcadis is, to try to balance that with how much profit or how much economic success a waterfront development could have while balancing the sustainable nature of it. So we always have a sustainable angle to all of our projects. Okay, the important one is progress. Again, this is the fourth pillar. We are measuring in terms of how cities have progressed, from where they started from a few years ago. And we want to weigh that just as equally as we did with the first three, because it's one thing to look at a city today. It's another thing to look at how much they've progressed since we've started tracking this index. There's four main categories of cities in progress, and this is slightly different from the others. This is an excerpt from the Sustainable Cities Index, which is free to download for all of you. You can just go to our website and download it. Four main buckets we see between progress and sustainability. There are cities with momentum, with falling momentum. So these are cities with already high sustainability and have started to slow their momentum in terms of sustainability. Could be because of a factor of things, could be just because they have a change in political agenda. It could also mean just there's very little for them, there's very little margin left for them to improve in the big steps that they've done before. cities with sustained momentum. So these are cities that are already highly advanced that still have even with their highly advanced sustainable policies and agenda, they still are pushing the pace. And these are the cities that we, as a company and, even in general in the global engineering industry, we're looking at these cities as, good examples of what other cities can do to maintain momentum and to really just leapfrog over, some of the underdeveloped challenges that some underdeveloped cities have. There are cities that lack momentum still, and you can see that Manila is one of those. Unfortunately, when we do try to track this index, we try to sense check with things. And I myself looked at this index and thought, okay, maybe we could have done more as a city. But again, this is just tracking what's been happening. These are cities that have low progress and have low sustainability already and are progressing really slowly. Again, could be a number of things. Could be we can't in our company we don't really infer any or imply anything about cities that lack momentum. It's more just checking the historical data from where Manila was 8 years ago, for example. Have they progressed significantly since then? What we've seen is not really. And this could be a number of things, but for us in terms of how we look at cities, we look at it actually as an opportunity. If a city like Jakarta, like Bangkok, and like Kuala Lumpur have made significant progress in their sustainable agenda, these are just things that reassure us that, when we try to do work in the Philippines or the effort that Manila can do, it's not impossible. Places like Jakarta, Kuala Lumpur, and Bangkok are able to do it. So it just gives us more opportunity. And, in a positive spin to things, maybe we can learn from them as well. And cities with early momentum are those that top the progress pillar of our index. Cities like Jakarta, Kinshasa, again, mainly because they have a lot of room for improvement. Some simple things like access to drinking water and sanitation, education for female educational attainment. Those are important things when we're tracking progress because, for some of these cities, those are the kinds of challenges they deal with. Whereas places like Amsterdam and Rotterdam, it's not really a challenge anymore. So, trying to push the pace is different for a place like Amsterdam or a city like Jakarta. There are a lot of city spotlights in this presentation, but I'll only go through three. And if there are more questions, I can go through them. The first city I'd like to talk a little bit more about is Amsterdam. Now, Arcadis is based in Amsterdam. Amsterdam is our head office. And we try to make this index without any bias from one specific city. And the fact that Amsterdam always tops the list is sort of just a testament to what kind of sustainable developments a city like Amsterdam can produce. Global engineering firms, global oil and gas firms are pushing the pace for renewable energy as well because of the kind of community or kind of city that Amsterdam is. So big things in Amsterdam, as you know, it's a very cycle heavy city. So it says sustainable transportation, active transportation, that's really important for a place like Amsterdam. There is still issues, it's not perfect. There is still room for improvement. With Amsterdam, some of the recommendations we make for this city is things like managing affordability because it is a relatively small city, and affordability is a very big deal for a lot of the European and cities in North America as well. New York ranks 48th in our index, so that's right in the middle of the 100 cities we tracked. It is one of the big economic powerhouse in the world, the city of New York, and there's a lot of improvement that they've made as well in terms of sustainable agenda. But what we see lacking in New York is the progress. They have made significant progress in the past, but at the moment, as we're looking at the index, they're not really performing as well as they could be. For places like Copenhagen or Oslo. Unemployment is a big deal, and things like income inequality is also a big deal, which makes it difficult for us to rank them in the people pillar really highly because of the challenges they face with this. Manila ranks 93rd in our 100 cities in the Sustainable Cities Index. It is, it is a really eye-opening exercise for us, especially a lot of the work is done in Manila in our global business. A lot of the engineering talent we have, sits in the Zuelig building in Makati. And it's difficult because we do a lot of sustainable work and we don't see a lot of it come out in Manila specifically. So there's a lot of room for progress. I would say in term if we had a silver lining for things like this, the difficult challenges we see in Manila, for example, are sustainable agenda in the city. So things like electric vehicle adoption is still quite slow. Uh, People, some of you may experience this already living in Manila, but it's hard for income inequality is a big deal, and cost of living is getting higher and higher for the city of Manila. Profit is difficult as well as a lot of the economic struggles of Manila over the past year really reflects in this index. And progress again is difficult because we don't see a lot of progress in terms of momentum, especially compared to the other cities in its contemporaries like Jakarta, Kuala Lumpur, and Bangkok. But I guess all this to say there is a lot of opportunity. I think a lot of, the people listening to this call as, potential future engineers, have a lot of opportunity to just stay aware of what we can do in a city like Manila. And the work that you will do in the future will be to try to help improve Manila's Sustainable Cities Index score. I think I'll leave it there for now. I'm not sure if I talked way more than I was supposed to, but maybe this is a good time to open the floor for questions.
Okay, thank you so much, Vince, for that insightful presentation. So we would like to encourage our participants to pose some questions to our speaker. So Vince, just to ask the first question,
Sure.
uh, the index that you have mentioned and you have highlighted, diminishing returns on sustainability investment.
Mm.
Could you elaborate on what that means in practical terms? What
Yeah,
are some examples of these diminishing returns, and how can cities overcome this problem?
absolutely. For a city like Jakarta, for example, a lot of progress can be made because there is a low adoption currently of renewable energy. Policies that support increase in use of solar energy and wind energy make significant progress in a place like Jakarta. With that said, in a place like Amsterdam, policies for solar and wind energy actually will do a lot less than it would in Jakarta just because Amsterdam already has so much of these renewable energies. So the returns for improving a city like Amsterdam, they'll have to work significantly harder to make more progress, which is, removing emitting vehicles altogether, which is a difficult thing for any city. But they will have to make steps like that just so that they can continue progressing in that way. Whereas a place like Jakarta, just the fact that they're using less oil-based, energy is already a big step. And Jakarta and Indonesia is one of the biggest countries in the world in terms of landmass. And so a place like Jakarta and the cities in Indonesia make significant progress, whereas a place like Amsterdam will make slightly less. So there will be different challenges for each. And what we try to do is try to guide cities like Amsterdam on what kind of progress we can make so that they can continue to push the pace.
Thank you for that answer, Vince. We have some questions in our Q&A portion. This question is coming from Mr. James Lad Molino, and he is asking, are the four Ps given equal weights in the overall ranking?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Are the four Ps for the people, planet, profit, and
Mm,
plus
progress.
progress,
Yeah.
are they given equal weights in the overall ranking?
Yes, we did our best to make them equal in terms of the ranking. Yeah.
Okay. We have another question from an anonymous participant. In what aspect Manila is lacking to jump off its progress?
Okay, that's a good question. Uh, to think back at the previous question also, I think the one thing, maybe a normal connotation for sustainability is always just about nature. And it's not always the case. Being a sustainable city is not just about green spaces, but it's also about how sustainable it is for its people population and its economic development as well. So a city that's sustainable for us in Arcadis doesn't just mean that they have nature, but also that they are improving economically and can sustain themselves in the future. And for the question about Manila, what they can do or what Manila can do to improve, I think a lot of it is about improving policies. Policies about work-life balance, policies about improving public transportation and emissions, for example. Those are big things that Manila can do to even improve the city. I know there is a lot of politics involved with policy, but with that's sort of what we see with Jakarta and Kuala Lumpur as well. Um, the kind of things that they do to sort of remove the high emission vehicles, even those kinds of things really improve a city's score in terms of how we make this index.
Okay, thank you, Vince. We have a question from Mr. Antonio Carlos Maralit, and he asked, is a city's local governance situation part of the aspects of a city's sustainability index? If
Yep.
so, can you
Yeah.
share briefly how this is measured and what would be cities with good index standing in this area?
Yes, definitely. Local government really influences it, but it's not one of the metrics that we measure. Because local government, for example, really affect public transportation services or they affect access to education. If a local government invests more in education, in health, and income inequality, those are the kinds of measurements that we track. So regardless of what the local government, politically does, it's not relevant to the index. How they what it turn it they execute, that's what's important to us. So if it means that a local government has improved public transportation or is in talks to redevelop public transportation, those are the kinds of things that we would track. Another important factor of this is crime. Crime is important for any city, and cities rank really low because of high crime rate, and cities rank really high because of their crime rate. So it really is important for a local government to look at all aspects of it, whether it's crime, whether it's cultural offerings like museums and event spaces, whether it's education, like how well public education is. All those things a local government can influence and doesn't really have to rely on the central government for things like this.
Thank you so much, Vince. We have another question in our chat box from Biswajit Sarkar. He comments your presentation, and he asks, however, how smart city and smart factory can be helpful for sustainability cities.
Oh, that's a really good question. That's important. And I wish I could have talked more about that in this presentation as well. Smart cities are really important to me personally because that's sort of the work I do within Arcadis. Uh, Digital innovation in a city is really important because for cities that are highly advanced, like for example, Singapore, London, and Amsterdam, the digital infrastructure and the way that we would improve the city's infrastructure is so important that uh, any policy regarding smart city innovation really is looked favorably in our index because we advise a lot of the smart city infrastructure, whether it's mobile apps for parking or even things like mobile banking. Those are important for us as cities. But for building infrastructure itself, one of the things we see in, for example, a city like Singapore is that they have policies to require BIM, digital building information modeling for cities that although is really important to a city, a policy also has to translate into practice. So where we see smart cities that have policy, they rank really favorably. But where we see that policy translate into action, that's where we see really cities go above and beyond. So places like London, where, BIM isn't only, a part of policy, but it's part of, commercial standards because they make buildings cheaper. That's when we see, okay, this city knows how to make it sustainable because it's not only a policy, but it's become an economic advantage as well.
Thank you, Vince. We have a question regarding balancing various criterias. So
Yeah.
it mentions, how can urban planners and policymakers effectively balance the needs of economic growth, environmental sustainability, and social equity to create inclusive, resilient, and thriving cities for all inhabitants?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's a difficult question because I
Mhm.
think that's what all global engineering and architecture firms struggle with. Because,
Mm.
at the end of the day, someone's paying for these projects. And, whether that project, is focused on the investment and the economic outcome of it, we do our best as, if you will become an urban planner in the future or an architect in the future, I guess my ask or my company's ask is that you always have the conversation with your clients about what it means for sustainability and what it means for the people. So as much as we want to influence them, at the end of the day, we have to work with our clients because that's what will, develop a city. But for example, in our company, when we provide ESG advisory, environmental, social, and governance, advisory, um, a lot of companies come to us and ask for, how do we improve the environment? And we always have the conversation of, okay, this is what we can do to improve your environmental, policies within the company or your developments within the company. But what can we do for the social aspect? Because, when we look at ESG advisory, it's not just about environment anymore than it used to be. Now, social is really important for the large scale clients that we work with, and also how they govern sustainably and ethically.
Thank you for that, Vince. We have a question. How did Arcadis identify the cities? Because here in the Philippines, there are some of the cities are striving for sustainability, but not yet in that large scale level. So they are just asking, how uh, does Arcadis identify the cities?
Yeah, that's a good question because we're only able to select 100 whenever we make these indexes. So obviously there are cities that don't make this list that, arguably should be on this list. But when we make this index, we try to see we try to do a screening of the cities we choose. Obviously, one of the things we look at is how global a city is. How connected is the city to not only the region, but globally. So, for example, if, for example, the Philippines could improve its score so well that not only Manila is a global city, but for example, Cebu is also a global city, we would look at how well the Cebu interact with the European community or the North American community or the South American community. We try to measure global cities in the way that they are connected with other cities, but also how progressive they are in terms of policies. So there's sort of a baseline that we're trying to look at. And there's not a lot of African cities in this, for example, and there's not a lot of Latin American countries that we show here. But when we do, we always reassess whether a city should be on this list for ranking, or we should spend more time in thinking about how they can get to become a global city. So it's our personal ranking, it's our company ranking, and we do a lot of work to make sure that we choose the cities that can not only read this but also make the most out of it, because that's important to us as well.
Thanks, Vince. I have a question here. Is it possible to extract the raw data of the index? I think
Unfortunately, we
this is
don't
for
share that.
research.
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't share that, but we're happy to have conversations with people about the data we have. We
Mhm.
can't share it because a lot of it, for example, comes from, some of our clients as well. So we aggregate the work that we do with work that's readily available online as well. But if you go to the index itself, if you read the report, you'll see the metrics that we used and use it, and you can see from those metrics that those are sort of what you can use for your research if you want to sort of come up with similar findings for this kind of exercise.
Okay, thanks, Vince. Now, this question is focused on Manila.
Mm.
And you mentioned already some background about the index of Manila. Uh, is policy implementation lacking in this case? What do you think, Vince?
I can only say with a context of how the other cities in the region have performed as well. So I can't say for sure that, Manila is not doing good or is not doing well. I can say that relatively, Manila isn't im- Manila as a city isn't implementing policies that progress its, sustainable footprint. In the same way, for example, that Jakarta would when it comes to access to education or improvements in education. So there are things that Manila can do, I would say, based on what the other cities in the region are doing. But for example, I wouldn't be able to, I'm not in politics myself, so I wouldn't be able to say that Manila is lacking in anything. I think it's up to the local government to say, but we can make recommendations, that's for sure.
Speaking of education and learners, this question focuses on what do you think are effective strategies to inspire and challenge young learners in basic education, like high school, to actively contribute to building sustainable cities?
That's a really good question. And even myself growing up in Manila, in the Philippine education system, I don't think we had teachers that inspired us for just looking at things in an environmental way. Even, regardless of the social aspect of it, even the environmental aspect of it, what we can do is we have, and this is only from talking from my personal experience in Manila. If we can have passionate teachers about sustainability, even for simple things like how to recycle properly, even policies like that can really inspire people to see that it's real, because a lot of it feels like it's far away, like we'll never have, a green park in, I don't know, in Mandaluyong, for
Mhm.
example. But the things that can make it feel real to students, I think would be really important.
Okay, thanks, Vince. Let's go back to the methodology. There's a question here asking about the time period used for measuring the progress,
Yeah.
specifically on the progress.
And that's a good question. We tracked it over 5 years. So 2019 to 2024, that's how we tracked it. Not all of the metrics have 5 year reliable data. Because again, if we're looking historically, how much of Kinshasa would report their female education attainment? We do our best to try to make them 5 year trends, but when we can only do 3 year trends, we would put it in the report. So I don't have the report in front of me right now, but if you go through it, you'll see where we went for 5 year trends and where we went for 3 year trends.
Okay, thanks, Vince. You mentioned about the 2000 day deadline. It builds some urgency. In your
Mm.
view, what are the top three most critical actions cities should prioritize in this short time frame?
Yeah, that's a good question. In the report, you'll see that we have a long list of recommendations. Well, I would say it's not long, 6 recommendations.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and none of them will really be a surprise. For example, the first recommendation we make is adapting to climate change impacts. A lot of infrastructure projects in the Philippines and in the world last for 5 years, 10 years to build a bridge, for example. How are we building bridges today that they can respond to future problems? And maybe a lot of the recommendations we would have is planning for that right now, planning for resilience, even something as simple as capacity for stormwater drainage. It could be X amount today, but it could be double that in 3 years when typhoons happen every 2 days. So those are the kinds of things where we recommend that not only cities, put into policy, but commercial developers see as an economic, improvement advantage to their infrastructure as well. It's one thing for a city to tell you you have to, build up to a new code that doubles the, capacity of stormwater drainage. It's another thing for companies to say, actually, it's cheaper for us to do it now than fix it in the future. So that kind of thing we want not only cities to see, but also commercial developers. Another recommendation we would make is renewable energy sources, what we see in the progress pillar is a lot of the ones making big steps and strides in development are the cities that have just said solar is so much cheaper now. And we just, it doesn't make sense that we're not thinking about solar infrastructure in these cities. Just one more recommendation, maybe, and then the rest you can read through when you have the time.
Yeah.
Is decarbonizing homes, facilities, and industries. Decarbonizing buildings make up so much of the carbon footprint, carbon emissions of any city, because it's a city, of course. And the more cities become urbanized, the more of a pressing challenge decarbonizing is. So, using, for example, rainwater for some of your water usage in buildings, adding solar panels, and even just using, energy efficient heating ventilation systems. Those are the kinds of things that, would seem simple right now, but in terms of applying it to a whole city, we still have a lot of work to do.
Okay, thank you, Vince. Let's talk about the index. The index emphasizes the importance of balancing people, planet, profit, and even progress as the pillars. However, sometimes these pillars seem to be conflicting. How can
Hmm.
cities effectively navigate these trade-offs and ensure equitable and sustainable development?
That's a good question. Because, yeah, as you said, some of them can be conflicting. A profitable city can see a huge land space as an opportunity for an industrial manufacturing plant. And that sort of contradicts with, what they can do for the planet, right? What kind of industrial manufacturing plant are you building that, that can also be sustainable? It's a difficult trade-off to make, but in any single project, obviously there's going to be one major economic, one of the pillars that will be progressed. Whether if it's an industrial plant, that's one thing that's one thing that will improve the profit of a city. But cities as a whole have to look at all of them. So even though they are conflicting, it's important that cities have policies that also, improve the economic output of a city with its sustainable output. So, for example, one of the projects that we were working on is a data center that also is trying to be sustainable. So, how can we push a data center that uses up a lot of energy to be more sustainable? And those are the kinds of things that we try to balance. And it's not going to be an easy balance. With some projects, a city, will recommend to build a data center because it's needed and it's needed quickly. And in another city, they will say, you build a data center and then design for renewable backup power. So those are the kinds of things where try our best to balance it because it is difficult for any city and any consultant to try to recommend. But it's just it's how we see that progress is made because they're not all going to be easy.
Thank you, Vince. We have a question regarding the methodology, but
Yeah.
I think we have no more time for to discuss that. Perhaps a lot are asking about how to access a copy of the report. How do we access the report?
I I
Can you
believe you
share the
can
link or
Google. I believe you can just Google Arcadis Sustainable Cities Index 2024, and then
okay?
you'll be linked to our website. And all you have to do is put in your email address, and then you can download the report. We try to make it simple for everyone, for clients and for researchers to access this kind of thing.
Excellent. Another question, Vince. Considering your global perspective and what are some key differences observed in how cities in developed versus developing countries are approaching sustainability? What lessons can they learn from each other?
Yeah, that's a really good question. With a city like Amsterdam, for example, they've come so far in terms of how they've improved their renewable energy capabilities in the city that they've also made some mistakes. For example, there's really highly advanced wind turbines right now, but 10 years ago, they've had really, inefficient wind turbines. And, a lot of you would know this as researchers that, efficiency just improves over time. And as more and more of the technology improves, cities like Jakarta don't need to go through all those steps as well. They can use the latest and greatest, most efficient solar panels or most efficient wind turbines so that they can progress very quickly. So a lot of the lessons learned are not just in policy, but also in the advancement in technology. So I guess what cities can learn from each other would be use it would be trying to keep in touch with the latest technology, but also what policies work and haven't worked. So, subsidies for electric vehicles can be really enticing, but what does it mean for a city when they subsidize electric vehicles? It's always a trade-off, and the more that cities can look at other cities and say, actually, that didn't work for Singapore, it's good for us to do it in a different way or to do something differently. Those are sort of the things that we're looking at as a company as well.
Thank you so much, Vince. And speaking of data and of course comparing developed and developing countries, how can cities improve their data collection and analysis to better track progress and make informed decisions on sustainability initiatives?
That's difficult because data collection relies on, what's publicly available. I mean,
Yeah.
what is there to say? Just do it. I don't know. A lot of cities just don't track the data, and even just tracking the data is good, but the collection itself is another thing, right? How accurate is the data you're collecting? What kind of information are you putting? And the more that they can just make it visible and say, okay, we tracked this data over 5 years, but we did it through, survey of 100 people in population. At least that's good information for us to know how reliable a piece of data is. It's one thing for us to say, okay, please, make a census for your entire population for how much gas they use on a Friday night. And it's another thing for them to actually do it. So the more we can just be aware of how they track data, the more we can just work with what we have, because there is constraints, not just in how we make this index, but how we source the data. So it's difficult, but the more that they can just be transparent about how they gather information, that's already a good start.
Thanks, Vince. I have one last question. Because we have some Lasallian students attending this webinar, as a DLSU alumnus, what advice would you give to current students and young professionals who want to contribute to creating more sustainability cities? What skills, knowledge should they focus on developing?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Again, I was one of you guys here in this call. I think what was important for me was to stay curious with anything sustainability because things change very quickly. I think even when I started joining Arcadis, because it's such a big company and, the kinds of things we'd make would be, from everywhere and different kinds of things. The more that you can look at something and say, okay, why did we do it that way? Whether it's a reservoir in Colorado or if it's solar panels in Jakarta, just the more that you try to see like how things are done would be what helped me in my career and what could help you in getting into sustainability as well. Because a lot of it, as you will know in the industry, is people are just trying out new things because we can't stick to the old way. And so the more that you can just be curious about what's new in sustainability, and the more that you ask about these things, I think really helps in any career in sustainability consulting.
Hey, thank you so much, Vince, for your time and expertise. So may I invite everyone to give a round of applause to our speaker, Mr. Vince Ko. Thank you so much, Vince, for today's lecture and also for answering our questions.
Well, no, thank you. Thank you everyone for joining. I know it's late for all of you. I appreciate I've talked a lot, but I hope, this is interesting to some of you. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Uh, I would also like to thank everyone for an engaging discussion this evening or today. We hope that today's lecture has inspired you to take action and contribute to a more sustainable future. So at this point, we would like to hear from you. We would like to know how we can improve further the delivery of the LaSalle Sustainability Lecture Series. So kindly scan the QR code or even go to the given link as shown here. So again, thank you so much. We look forward to another lecture series by next month.